Neal, what you have shown us was so inspirational of how you've come from a background, you did not look at that as poor me, look what life dealt me, look at what I'm not going to be able to become. What point did you believe, or at what age did you know you were going to truly do something significant with your life? What was that truly point? Was it William Mitchell, or what was that actual point you knew?
Well, there were several points. And again, it is how do you create these things incrementally? And so I didn't just focus on, oh, I want to race 27,000 miles around the world. I had to break this down into something that was manageable. In order to take on such a big undertaking, the first thing you've got to do is planning and preparation. And if you get your planning and preparation right, then you can do execution. But if you don't plan and prepare, your execution will be totally flawed. So all my life it was, how do I plan? How do I prepare? How do I build confidence? How do I bring a team together? The folks to help me design the boat, to build the boat. The teams to help me invest the money. And I became a global investor. I've invested in all kinds of companies today. And so you build that confidence. And then you take that small success and you say, okay, now what? You don't become complacent and stay on this plateau because it gets very crowded on the plateaus. You've got to keep from one plateau, look for the next peak, and climb again. And again, that confidence of, okay, I can get a little higher. And again, achieve building the boat. Part of that planning, part of the preparation, part of the long-term vision. Now finish the All-Star race. Now what? Into the round the world race. Prepare for that. And then when the day of the start comes, I don't think about 27,000 miles. I think about the next leg. I just got to get through today. Got to get through that start line, get through the spectator crowd, and not get sunk by a spectator boat, and get through the first night. And when times are tough, and there's a lot of tough times, you look inward to find those solutions. And you don't think about tomorrow, next week, next month. You think about the next few minutes of how do I solve that problem. And again, this builds confidence. So throughout getting at the plaster cast and the doctor giving me those magazines, Richard Broadhead, and seeing the bigger vision, entering the race, and finishing the O-Star. Those were the incremental steps of the success that made the big vision possible.
My name is Dan from Canada. I just wanted to ask you, whatever happened to that 38/40 footer?
I still have her. I'm a two-boat owner. She sits at my house in Charleston, South Carolina. She's a lawn ornament. I don't have the heart to part with her because someday I may do the Vendée Globe. As we speak right now, the non-stop solo around the world race is completing. It's a race from France around our planet, the Southern Ocean, back to France. I'd love to do that race. Now, it's going to cost $3 to $5 million. So I'm trying to figure out how to build the companies, build the investments, so that someday I could maybe self-sponsor. So again, there's still bigger visions out there. And I want to take the old boat to that start line and put it alongside the 60-footer, because only 60-footers are allowed in this race. And I want people to be able to see where I came from and how I progressed from this boat to that boat. And again, I don't want people to just see and think, oh, he became a success, an instant success. There is no thing like instant success. So the old boat is still a reminder of my roots, of my history, of my humility that will hopefully get me to this next race. And then I'm a dreamer. And one of the things I dream of, anybody know anybody in Hollywood? Because I'm trying to find a motion picture contract, and I want to use the old boat as the prop. Let them fix the boat and help me get to the next race. So yeah, she's around.
You talked quite a bit about the inspiration that you got from your mother. I'm curious, what do you feel like drove her inspiration? What happened in her life? What enabled her to be that inspiration for you?
I think part of some of this might be genetics. I come from a family that just truly never gives up. Now, my father had the negative genes. Being alcoholic, it was, whoa, poor me, and I'll do better, and oh, I'm so sorry. That's who my dad was. That had to learn to love him as he was. But my mother, she was a brilliant student. And our community had high expectations of her. So she went to high school in an era when women didn't go to high school. Then went on to college. Then went to a foreign university. And continuously raised her bar and raise the standards of others. And again, it's one of these people who didn't say, oh, I'm a woman, I can only go so far. She saw no limitations. She truly believed and gave me those values of believing that we can go beyond the current reality, the current situations. She truly was that Star Trekkie to venture beyond, to venture on where no person had gone before. So she led by example. And my mother was a big follower of Gandhi, a man who believed in passive resistance. And when he took on the British Empire to free India, he didn't see limitations. He saw what India could look like independent of Great Britain. So she was inspired by people like that. She came to this country supported by Paul Robeson, the musician, and he ended up doing a song, Don't Scandalize My Name, which became a movie because he was witch hunted by McCarthyism. And so through her relationship with Paul Robeson, she got to march in the American civil rights along with Martin Luther King. And again, that made a profound impact on her life, and she chose to go back to South Africa. And she declined many invitations and offers from American universities to be a professor. And she became a high school biology teacher because she believed in education. She believed in our community. She believed in democracy for our country. And she put her life on the line for those beliefs. That was the leadership by example that I grew up with. So I cannot accept mediocrity today. I've got to step up to the plate as well. And I expect my wife to step up to the plate because she's my partner. And that we can do these things, what some see as impossible, we can do together with our love, with our support, with our courage, with our commitment. And it's amazing when you truly believe, and there's a saying that if you believe you can't, you probably won't. If you believe you can, you probably will do. And that's what we have to live by. All you can do is give your best.
How have you found that you've been able to inspire the next generation of solo yachtsmen or yachtswomen?
Well, I got to work with a lot of different sailors, young sailors around the world, and there was a British sailor, Ellen MacArthur, who was around on the docks when I was doing my O-Star races and getting into my first round the world races. And she sort of saw what we were doing, and she saw our examples. And she became a legend and ended up breaking records as one of the fastest female sailors. And she ended up finishing second in a Vendée Globe race some years back. And she was so successful in what she did, nobody remembers who won the race. But everybody remembers Ellen's participation. But we've got to go beyond our rifle vision in terms of being sports people. Unfortunately, in America, and sometimes in our world, sports people, musicians, billionaires are glorified by the public. And we forget that the everyday hero, the policeman, the fireman, the teacher, those two are heroes in our community. And they make huge contributions every day. And nobody sort of pats them on the shoulder and says, hey, thanks for what you're doing. They just take it for granted. And our society tends to measure success by the size of the bank account. And I spent a lot of time going to schools around the world, including the United States. And there was a time I used to drive an old, beaten-up Mazda. And kids would say to me, well, what do you drive? And I said, you see that Mazda? That's my wheels. And I said, well, gee, you're not successful then. You've got a piece of junk. And then as my business and my investments became more successful, I ended up buying myself an expensive sports car. And one day a kid asked me, what you drive? I said, oh, you see that black Mercedes convertible out there? That's mine. Oh, wow. You've got that? You've got to be successful. I have a problem with this because nothing changed. I'm still the same person. I just happen to have a little bit more capital, or in some other people's cases, they can borrow a bit more than I can. So we've got to be very cautious of how we measure certain things and who we worship. But I needed to go beyond. I needed to go beyond the sailing community, beyond the school children. So one of the things that I do is I spend my time in the universities teaching. And I ended up changing my arrangement. Thank you, Tribby. So on Wednesday, I won't be at university. I'll be with you. So the following week, we're going to continue teaching. And I never went to university. But today, I'm an adjunct professor. I've taught now at 5 5 or 6 universities around the world. And I teach regularly at the College of Charleston. So I'm teaching not just freshman students, but I'm also teaching MBAs. And we've done a lot of work with MBAs in a couple of universities from Porto, in the Boston area, and the College of Charleston. And I'm trying to teach them a different way at looking at success, and a different way of measuring success. And I'm trying to teach about being a part of this entire world, because today, it's not just about America. It's not just about our little community. We live in a global world. So I want them to understand that we've got to live inside of this world, cooperate with this world. And I've really got some amazing students. And I've not only just mentored students, I've mentored individuals. And I've taken a young kid. One of our homes is a home in South Africa. And there was a youngster who wanted to be a sailor. And he grew up in our home. So when I bought the home, they ended up renting it from us. And Philip ended up worshiping me because I'd done what he was dreaming of doing. And he wanted to be a racing sailor. And I said, Philip, let me tell you about the harsh realities of that. You say you want to be a racing sailor, but you also say you want to be a family man and you want to have kids. It's a little bit of an oxymoron here, because out on the high seas, you're alone. And your wife is at home by herself raising a kid. And you might not come home. I saw many friends perish in this game. Is this really what you want? And he said, well, maybe I don't want it that badly, but I want to go to sea. So I told him about being a captain of a mega yacht. And so he began as a deckhand and worked his way up to where he's right now the number 2 in command of a $98 million yacht. Somebody trusts him with $98 million hardware. Now, they pay you by the foot. So for every foot, you get about $1,000 a month of income, or $1,000 per year. So he's making a fortune. He's 26 years of age. He's earning $170,000 a year, living his passion. He lives on the boat. He has no expenses. This is play money. And he doesn't pay taxes because he's not American, and South Africa does not have a tax jurisdiction on the high seas. So this is $180,000, $190,000 tax-free. So I've taught him to invest. And he's become a part of the investment syndicates that I've pulled together. But I'm also teaching him about you've got to give back. With our success comes obligations. Obligations to others. And a young lady also helped change my life. 7 years ago, my stepson handed me a baby granddaughter. I was working in Bermuda with the Bermudan government, with the Bermudan premier, when Shelby Grace was born. And when I flew home from being with them and I held this little infant in my arms, this couple-of-day-old infant, I started thinking about the world. Some of the things my mother had taught me. And she said that if you can say yes to these 3 answers, life will be without struggle, or will be with less struggle. And that first question was, what I do, is it right for me? Every one of us in this room, Triby, you can justify it. All of you can justify what we do is right for ourselves. So can a drug dealer. Which brings us to the second question, what I do, is it right for my family? Again, we all can justify it. The drug dealer can say, look at the nice house, look at the nice schools my kids go to. And most people stop at the second question. The third question is, what I do, is it right for my community? And today we live in a global community. Now the drug dealer is in trouble. He or she can't, in all honesty, say selling drugs on the street corner is right for the community. And very few people think about our global community and our role and our impact on that global community. But when I held Shelby Grace in my arms, and I was looking at these 3 things, and I've been working in the political arena around the world. I was working with prisoners and students and politicians. I started thinking, what is the legacy I'm passing on to this girl? So for the last 7 years, I've challenged myself not to do what's right for me, not to do what's right for my family, not to do what's right for my community, but to try and do what is also right for the next generation. Because someday, this generation are going to be leaders. They are going to make decisions. And I look at, for example, just healthcare. The can got kicked down the road, generation after generation, and now you and I, we're dealing with healthcare in America because somebody else didn't think generationally about it. I was in Boston I flew out of Boston yesterday, or actually out of Boston this morning. And I spent 2 days working with mayors, all the mayors and selectmen in the Commonwealth. And I was introduced to the governor. And I've worked with a lot of politicians around the world. And somehow they kind of forget who they work for. They work for you and I. And so again, it's helping those politicians through this keynote realize what their obligations are. And that they too can either have a negative impact or a positive impact. They can carry baggage or carry treasure chests. So each day we are presented with the opportunity of making a difference, not just in the people we care and love, not just in the sports we follow or enjoy participating in, but in the world that we live.
Hi, just 2 quick questions, if you don't mind. Number one, just curious, 195 days at sea is a lot of time and a lot of work. How did you work your sleep schedule? Because I would assume if you don't get good sleep or enough sleep, you make mistakes, and you can't afford to make a mistake out there. Number one. And number two, do you think Gwen's kicking herself today?
Well, let me start with the second question. I actually don't know what she's thinking. And I will always love this woman because there is no way I could be here in Tucson, Arizona had she not been in my life. There's no way I can do the things that I do. Had it not been for my mother, had it not been for Gwen, had it not been for the powerful women who helped mold and shape me. And Gwen went on and became an artist and a successful artist in her own right. I really don't quite know what's going on in her world because she made a choice. She made a choice to leave the relationship. I didn't like the choice. But I've got a choice. I can be angry, or I can be bitter, I can be sad, or I can continue to love. And my wife has to live with Gwen every day I'm on the platform. My wife has to live with the memory of this other woman. And this is how powerful Darlene and my relationship is. I had just won a huge speaking contract and come out of Europe on this contract. And Darlene and I were living together. And I arrived at home and she knew I'd gotten the contract. And she said, gee, you're a little bit glum. And I said, I'm tired. And I went to lay down and she came to the room and says, what's bugging you? And I said, nah, I don't want to talk about it. She said, something is bugging you. And then she said, if Gwen called you right now and said she made the biggest mistake of her life and she wants back in the relationship, what will you do? So my response was, don't ask a question that you might not like the answer to. I said, no, I want to know. I said, right now, I'd go back because I'm still in love with her. I'm always going to be in love with her. But each day I'm with you, each day, each week, each month, each year that passes, my love for you will continue to grow, and my love for Gwen will transition to something else. And one day, Gwen may say that, but I'll tell her that I am in the best relationship I am now because I've got the right partner, the person I can trust the most, the person I can have no secrets from, that nothing can shake our marriage, nothing. And that is the world I want to build, the world that I've chosen to live in, the people I've chosen to surround myself by. So yes, Gwen might kick herself and say, gee, I could have a wonderful home in the Caribbean, or I could have a wonderful yacht, or meet incredible people, travel to wonderful places like the Ritz-Carlton here. Who knows? But had she and I stayed together, what would fate have been? Would I have stayed racing? Would my world have been different? I don't know. I don't have that ball that will tell me the alternative reality to the one I'm living right now. So you make your bed and you sleep in it and you live with the consequences of that choice. I can control what's in my sphere, not in hers. So going to your first question about sleep. Yeah, I like my sleep. I don't get a lot of it. And when you're racing a boat, you live in half an hour to 40-minute naps. You get to REM sleep very, very quickly, and the alarm goes off, and you wake up like that. You go up on deck, you look around, you scan the horizon, you see if there's anything that's a threat. If nothing is different, you're back into your bunk, and just like that, I'm asleep, and I'm back at REM sleep. I might have been on deck a minute, and you sleep another half an hour, 40 minutes, you're back up on deck. Again, same routine. Back down and sleep. If something is different, you then pull yourself out of that, you fully become alert, and you deal with it, and you don't go back to sleep. When there's no wind, I get the least amount of sleep because I'm trying to push the boat out of this no wind zone to where I can get wind. So every puff counts. I can't afford to miss a puff. So it's again like when the sales funnel is empty. You don't sleep. You work 10 times harder. And when the sales funnel is full, well, you can take your foot off a bit off the pedal and you can focus on all the other things you've got to do. You've got to maintain the boat. You've got to maintain your nutrition. You've got to forecast and look for where the next, how are you going to position yourself for the next wind shift? And you're going to take some downtime. So I like to read. So I would live on about 3 or 4 sleep cycles, then be up. And I always made sure that I got a sleep cycle in the late afternoon. Because Murphy's Law, after dark, if something's going to go wrong, it's going to happen in the dark. And so you just kind of adapt to that cycle. And then I always like to be on deck for sunrise. Because there's an old saying, red skies in the morning, sailor's warning. So again, it's to understand what's happening at those transition moments. And because it's been dark all night, I don't have big spotlights because I have limited battery power. So I use a flashlight to try and check what's happening around on the sails, the trim of the sails, etc. in the dark. But at first light, I get a chance to really look over the boat. So there might have been 7 or 8 hours of darkness, and a heli could have fouled, or a heli could have chafed, or a sail could be chafing, or something could be happening on the rigging. So at daylight, I want to catch these things before they become a problem. And then I'll go and take some naps again in mid-morning. So I'll get about 5, 6 hours, 7 hours of sleep collectively a day. But you can't bank sleep. Eventually, just that sleep needle just kind of goes towards that empty. And jobs, projects that would take you just like 5 minutes to do, suddenly can take you half an hour, or you miss little details, and I kind of feel myself just kind of like dragging. And then that last 24, 36 hours before the finish line, there is no sleep. You're hard in the shipping lines, you're coming up on the coast, there's going to be rocks that you could possibly hit, there's going to be fluky winds, shifting winds, and you've got excitement. And you're pushing the boat as hard as you can because you want to get to the finish line. And then when you cross that finish line, you are wiped out, but you're running on a high, you're running on adrenaline. So you don't get the luxury of going to bed right away. You're dealing with the media, you're dealing with the shore support crew, you're dealing with family, and eventually, you hit that brick wall and you just collapse. And then you think, oh, I'm going to sleep for 12 hours. Forget it. That doesn't happen. But something else. How many of you in the room are parents? Not that many. Wow, you sure work hard. Well, those of you who are parents, when your kid murmurs, you wake up like that. And you know exactly what a murmur means. Hunger, scared, or whatever. You respond. My boat is like a baby. If the wind shifts or something changes, it wakes me like that. It brings me out of that sleep mode. And after a few days, I don't even need an alarm clock to sleep to live in those cycles. So we do what we've got to do. And you know what? I can sleep a very, very long time when I'm dead. So, okay.
One last one?
Okay,
one last one. This actually isn't a question. We have a solution for your belt problem.
Ah!
And Folly Beach is the closest one to my house, just north of Charlotte. And John's our second newest guy, so we'll be down there to personally apply it for you.
Well, hang on. We've got to do this in the Dominican Republic. Because the boat is in the DR right now.
No, it's covered. Yeah.
So good. We can go worldwide. Good. Make sure we get together and we sort these things.
Exactly.
Again, thank you so much for having me.
Let's get around.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you very much.